Hey, I'm Brad Allen.
And I'm Mary Lane Sloan, and we're the Art of Real Estate. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about the home buying process because it can be very overwhelming.
So we're going to take the process today. You can watch it in one long video, or you can watch it in the 5 segments that we've broken out to. So you get a little bit of background of what the home search is like before you actually get into it. So in part 1 is the home search process, and pretty much everything that leads up to going to look at houses. So Marilyn, why don't you fill us in on what we need to be prepared for if we're going to look for a house?
Sure, so I find that this can be the first overwhelming part of the process because it really is important as a buyer for you to do a little research yourself to figure out where it is you want to be. Like a town like Columbia, there's several large areas ranging from the Northeast to Lexington to downtown to the lake, and it really does help your agent know what to look for if you've already done a little background research yourself. Some things you might want to consider is where your job is going to be, where your friends and relatives are going to live, how long of a commute you're willing to make, what kind of lifestyle you lead, and what activities you want to be close to.
And oftentimes your search parameters are going to change, and we're going to help you with that, but we at least need to know where to start, so then we can help kind of morph that to where we think an area might be better suited for your commute and everything else.
Another thing you want to take into considerations is whether any school districts are important to you and how close you want to be, if you want to be in walking distance, driving distance to any of those schools.
A lot of people don't interview agents for buyer's agents. They just know of one and they say, hey, let's go look at houses. That can be dicey sometimes because you don't know their experience and what they know. So we always recommend interviewing agents, sitting down with them, see where they're from, what they know, and you might need a different agent for different areas.
The next step I would recommend is that you talk to a lender if you plan on financing the purchase. This is another crucial step in this process because it's important as your agent for me to protect your budget, and I need to know how much money we have to go shopping before we actually go shopping.
But don't freak out. Going to the lender is like going to the dentist. You know you got to do it. It's a little scary, but when you're done, it's all fine. So they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, but we need to know that because if we show you houses that are too expensive or not expensive enough, then you're not going to find something you like, and it's just going to be a bad experience.
And remember, the credit bureaus expect you to shop for lenders and for cars, so you don't have to worry about hurting your credit score by calling 1 or 2 lenders.
And what we've done to help the process for your side is we have a website called livingcolumbia.com. You can get through it to our website. It's a home search portal. It has just as many listings and just as much stuff as maybe like a Zillow or something like that, but it's hyper local. So if it's not there, it's not for sale, and you're not wasting your time. So when you sign up, we will reach out to you just to make sure if you need any help, but you can start looking at houses and saving them. And then as we make contact, we can search houses for you and save houses. And that way, as things go off the market, they come off your list, and it really helps the process to be more enjoyable.
But I do think the biggest thing you can do when you're getting started with your home search is to reach out to a lender, establish a budget that you feel comfortable with, and then contact a real estate agent who has market knowledge and resources to help make this process as stress-free as possible.
And we do have recommendations on vendors and lenders and everybody else. So if you need that, we can also help you point you in the right direction.
Welcome to segment 2, finding the perfect house.
So finding the perfect house is kind of difficult sometimes. So we need you to make sure that you can jump in and help us. So the first thing we have to do is something that's called the buyer agency. You've probably had agents want you to sign this several times over again. And what it is, if we show you listings that our company does not have listed, we have to have a reason to have you in that house. That's first and foremost. So we can't show you houses that aren't ours unless we have this signed.
I like to equate it to a permission slip. As your agent, I'm responsible for you. I'm responsible for making sure I'm showing you houses that fit your budget and fit your search criteria, but I'm also making sure that the seller knows that I'm bringing qualified people and qualified clients to the home. Having an agency relationship also gives me the benefit of being your advocate. So when we're in the home, we can talk freely together. For example, if you said, Mary Lane, I love this house, I'd pay full price for it. That conversation stays between me and you, and I cannot tell the seller anything we discuss.
And it really establishes fiduciary duties, kind of like an attorney a little bit, where it's confidentiality and obedience and about 7 other things that we have to give to you, and there's some things that you have to give back to us. And part of that is being available to see houses. Not when we want you to, but when we mutually can get together. And that's really helpful because a lot of people think, oh, I want to go look on the weekend. Well, looking at houses on the weekend is a little tough because everybody usually is off work. So you got to play around schedules and sports and everything else. So we always recommend that take some time off of work. Come during the day when people are at work and we have free reign of houses and we can get in and get out and see a lot more houses, and thus making the experience a little bit better for you.
Right, and it's also important that when we're doing the search, as I send you listings, or as you're looking at the houses on Zillow or Realtor.com or livingcolumbia.com, that if I'm sending you listings or you're finding houses that you like but you're not familiar with that neighborhood, go drive through that neighborhood before we make the appointments to go look at the houses so that we can best use your time.
Yeah, and so we also want to set expectations. We're going to block off time of our schedule to make sure that we can show you free and clear. So we also ask the same in return. And when we're looking at houses, a lot of sellers are going to put a lot of time and energy into getting the house clean and ready. So we want to be sure we're playing nice with them as well. So if there's a house that you may not know if you want to go look at, like Marilyn said, go take a drive by and let us know.
So once you find your dream home, the next step is actually sitting down and making an offer. When you're ready, we will pull comps for the neighborhood to show you where that house is currently priced and whether we think there's any negotiating room or not. And then we'll sit down and we'll go over the contract, which is about 10 pages.
And a little shameless plug for Living Columbia again. If you go on there and save the ones that you want to see, like I think it's a heart, if you save those, and when you say, hey, I want to go look on Friday, we can pull those, we know which ones you want to see, and set them up. So in segment 3, we're going to talk about the contract. And this is a really exciting and anxious time because you're getting ready to put pen to paper to find your next house. Really important step here is making sure that we've been pre-approved, because when we write an offer, we write it based on your terms, but we need the lender to help tell us how to structure it. Some people do VA loans, which have certain requirements. Some people need closing costs, some don't. So that really helps us to know how to best situate you in this process, and it makes your offer a lot stronger if we can send an offer over with a pre-approval letter.
Right, and some loans take longer to close, so it's very helpful for me to know whether we're looking at a 60-day close, a 30-day close, or a 45-day close, so that I know how to best position you in the negotiations.
Very true. And the next step, once we get under contract, and we do verbal, but really everything needs to be in writing. So once we get it finally ratified, we're going to start 10 business days of inspections. It's 2 weeks. That's a long time. So we can usually get anybody and everybody in there. And the 3 that usually happen are the home inspection, the termite inspection, also known as the CL100, and the HVAC. And there's about 5 others that we could add in there depending on your comfort level and what you wanted to have accomplished during this time.
And yeah, here at the Art of Real Estate, we like to actually sit down with you and go through the offer before we present it. So it usually takes about an hour. At the time we sit down, you are going to be required to put down some earnest money. There's no real written rule for how much earnest money, but standard in our market is about 1% of the offer price.
And that earnest money is going to be actually held in our trust account. So I can't just cut it to our general fund or anything like that. So it's your money that we're going to hold for you.
Right, so, and you don't have to worry about, well, what if I change my mind? Am I going to lose that earnest money? So I always tell my buyers, here's the litmus test. If I called you and said 123 Dream House is no longer available, if you'd be heartbroken, then we need to make an offer on that house, whether it's the first house you've seen or the 20th house you've seen. Because don't worry, once we get into this, we have 10 business days to do any and all inspections you want to do, or you can just up and change your mind and I can get that earnest money back for you. So I just like to remind my buyers, I can always get you out, but I can't get you in if another buyer beats you to the punch. So now we have a ratified contract. Welcome to section 4. We're going to go over what happens next. Once we have a ratified contract, your business days start. So remember, you have 10 business days. So Saturdays and Sundays and federal holidays don't count to do any and all inspections you want to do, or just to up and change your mind.
And these inspections, like she's saying, comes at your cost. So we got to be prepared when we put this thing under contract that we've got set aside between $500 and $1,000, depending on the house and the size of the house, to pay these vendors at the time of inspection. If you don't know any, we're happy to recommend some. And we also encourage you to interview them yourself to make sure that you feel like they're going to be a good fit for the house that you want to buy.
Right, most buyers do a home inspection, a CL100, which is a termite inspection, and a heating and air inspection. However, there are a vast number of other inspections you can do, such as a pool inspection, a septic tank inspection, a well inspection,
Lead-based paint,
structural inspection. So there are a myriad of different options for you, but those are the main 3 that most buyers do.
And once you get your inspection reports back, which most of them happen on site, nice color photos printed out for you from the inspectors, we, during those 10 business days, can decide if we're going to ask the seller to make some repairs or concessions for repairs or not and move forward. But we have a hard and fast deadline of the 10th business day to reply to that seller on if we're going to proceed, back out, or ask for repairs.
And this is where an agent being your advocate is a huge plus for you as a buyer, because this is a double negotiation. We've negotiated price and terms up front, and now we have to negotiate again. Remember, per our contract, the seller is not obligated to make any repairs, but you as the buyer are not obligated to buy anything either. So we have an additional 5 business days to try to negotiate any repairs. If we cannot come to an agreement, either side can void the contract and you can get your earnest money back.
So in section 5, we're going to talk more about the financing part, because at this point we should have all the repairs and everything negotiated. We're past our due diligence period. So now you need to really focus your attention on the lender and what they're going to require from you.
Right. Now, I always like to tell my buyers at this point, don't get frustrated, because the lender is going to ask you for the same documentation over and over again. It's not that they're careless. It's not that they're not paying attention. They're trying to make sure that your documents that you're providing are consistent. They're trying to make sure that you're not a terrorist, you're not buying a house for a terrorist, and you're not trying to commit loan fraud. So I always like to tell my buyers, try to get some sort of cloud storage like a Dropbox account or a Google Docs, and just keep all your bank statements, all your W-2s, just keep all that information there. So when they ask for it the first time, the second time, the third time, and yes, maybe even the fifth time, it's there and it's easily accessible for you to send it over.
And to be honest, they're going to probably give you a couple $100,000 in 30 days. It's hard for me to get 20 bucks from my mom. So if they're going to ask for documents, just get them to them, because they're going to give you a lot of money.
Just know you're going to be anxious to hit your closing date on time, and everybody is working hard to do that, but the lender can only move as fast as you get them the documents they ask for. So in section 6, we're going to talk about the closing process. You've made it through the contract negotiations, you've made it through your due diligence period, you've made it through the financing contingency, and now we're in the home stretch. At this point, you're going to turn your focus more to the closing attorney. We are an attorney state here in South Carolina, which means all real estate transactions have to be closed through an attorney. At this point, the attorney might ask you if you want to have a new survey done. They're also going to do a title search. They're also going to set up the title insurance for the property.
And the lender and the attorney are really working side by side after the due diligence period. So it's not a one step then another. They're running simultaneously, and they're communicating, because the attorney makes sure that they can sell you a free and clear titled house, meaning somebody's not claiming title to it, but the person that's selling you the house actually owns it. And they're going to do a lot of things on your behalf. They are your advocates as well when it comes to the legal purposes. And at any point during this whole entire process, if something tends to go sideways or we have questions, we're going to refer you to the attorney, because they're the people that know best.
Right, so we're going to get through all of that, and then comes the closing day. Closing usually takes about an hour to an hour and a half, and it's when you, the buyer, and the seller sit down at the table with the closing attorney. You're going to bring your down payment money, the lender's going to show up with their funds, and the seller's going to show up with their keys. Once the documents are signed and once the funding is in place, then you get the keys and you get the home.
And you're probably asking yourself, when am I going to know how much I have to bring? Well, the lender's going to tell you towards the front of this process an estimated amount. But by law, they have to tell you 3 days from closing the exact penny of what you're going to have to bring. So sometimes those things move, and sometimes closings get pushed back. So I'm telling you now, don't make any plans for the day of closing to bring moving trucks or anything, because that will just lead to your frustration. We need to leave a little bit of a window, because some things shift and move, and sometimes people get sick, and we just got to push it for a day or so. So that's what we're here for, to make sure that everything is as smooth as possible.
So right before closing, you do have the right to do a walkthrough of the property to make sure that there are no new problems that have occurred, or when the seller was moving out, they didn't put any new holes or dings in the wall. And remember, if you negotiated some repair items, you also have the right to have your home inspector re-inspect to make sure that any repairs that you worked out with the seller were done appropriately. So I know that getting to the closing table seems like the most stressful part, but I would argue that the 30 days post-closing are actually the most stressful, because you're in your new home and you don't know what to do with it. So we want you to know that here at the Art of Real Estate, we're your partners in this house for as long as you live in it, right? If you need help switching utilities over, we've got you covered. If you need help remembering to file your property tax exemption, we've got you covered. If you don't know what a light switch does in your living room, we've got you covered. Just know here at the Art of Real Estate, we are committed to making sure that your new home is as pleasant of an experience as possible, even if you've been in it for a couple weeks.